So welcome everybody to AbilityNet Live. So today we are going to be looking at how to find local support if you need it. So I think one of the things that's been really nice to see at this time is how communities are really pulling together to offer local support in this time of crisis that we find ourselves in. And today's focus is going to be looking at how you can actually find that support using the internet, using online, to find out where you can get support either for yourself, if you're an older person, if you're disabled, or it might be for somebody else. We've already received an email this morning from somebody who was looking for some support for her mum who needs support, and she's currently unable to provide it. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. And with that in mind, it's amazing to be joined by so many other fantastic charities today. So we are being joined today by COVID-19 Mutual Aid UK, who have set up a website specifically looking at where people can find some of their local support groups that are springing up. So welcome. We're also being joined by Aid UK, who are very much responding to offering people local support locally and at a national level. Similarly, we're joined by British Red Cross, RNIB and the Stroke Association, and we are also joined by Mick Trott, who's going to be talking to us later about his book Staying Put and how you can find support with finding those elusive online shopping slots. So that's the focus for today. So we'll just run through and we'll do some more detailed introductions to the charities and the people that are joining us as we go through. If I can work out how to go to the next slide. Hang on. There we go. So great. So as I said, we're going to be looking at how to find local support using technology. We'll be talking to the individual charities. We'll be looking at how you can find support using Facebook groups as well. How to find support from Aid UK at a local and national level. Help from British Red Cross. And as I said, how to access government support during COVID-19. So a little bit of housekeeping. My colleague Mark is monitoring the Q&A box. As he said, if we could put any questions that you've got in the Q&A window, and we're going to keep the chat window for ourselves just for any kind of tech issues that come up during the call today. So that would be great. If you've got other questions, please do use the Q&A. And we'll be having some time at the end for the specific charities to answer some questions. After the webinar, you'll be able to access a recording, and we will also be asking you for any feedback about the webinar later as well. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping. Hopefully everybody is also seeing live captions, which are available during the webinar. So, Reese, can I introduce yourself if you want to take yourself off mute? So I'm really delighted today to be joined by Reese Arnott Davies, who is joining us from COVID-19 Mutual Aid UK. On the screen we have a screenshot of the website, which has got the search box to find your local group. So I'll just move on and get Reese to tell us a little bit more about the website and how it can help you. So Reese, if you're there, can you just give us a brief overview of COVID-19 Mutual Aid UK?
Sure, of course. Thanks for inviting me today, and I look forward to hearing from your many attendees. So COVID-19 Mutual Aid UK, we're not a charity, first of all. We didn't exist 3 weeks ago. What happened effectively is some of us started a group in our local area. Like for me, it was a street I live on in South London, trying to offer support to people who were being asked to self-isolate for the 12-week period in particular. But anybody who felt they needed help in staying away from busy shops, in getting medical support, in getting their prescriptions brought to them. So the website was kind of the solution to that problem. It's got loads of resources on it for people who want to set up local groups to support their local neighborhood. But it also has a search function, which you can, you saw a screenshot of slightly earlier, and you can see another kind of screenshot of on the right of the slide. All you have to do there is put in your local area, whether that's your postcode or your address, or just the name of your local town or village, and it will bring up a map detailing all the local groups and a list of the different groups and how to contact them. Most groups function on Facebook or with a website or email address. So if you have issues accessing any of those, you can also email us directly, and we can put you in contact with an admin for your local group. So that's basically how the website works. It's a place for us to help you find the support you need locally. It's not anything more than that. It's a tool, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. And how did you pull the website together? You've obviously, how is it bringing together all that information in one place? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it happened accidentally, I would say. I was a library assistant 3 weeks ago. The library isn't open anymore, so I've got a bit more time. And what happened is we started the local group for Lewisham, which is just a borough in South London. And just lots of people wanted to do something similar. So they started joining the Lewisham group, which presented problems for us because the Lewisham group then became a place where people were asking for how to set up their own group rather than asking for help within the local area. So we decided a kind of national umbrella website would be the best way forward for that. Mm-hmm. So we just started producing materials. We try not to offer medical advice, but all the medical advice we do offer is checked over by government epidemiologists and by doctors, by nurses, by healthcare experts. And we try to stay as up to date as possible with the medical guidelines that are coming out, obviously in real time at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And what are some of the services that people are accessing through the groups then? You've mentioned things like prescriptions. People will be able to get the sort of help with shopping and that kind of thing. What sorts of things are people accessing?
Right, yeah, exactly. That's a good question. So I live in my local area, obviously. And where I am, the stuff that I'm doing is a mixture of, so the local pharmacy got in contact because they weren't able to deliver prescriptions to people who were isolating. So now we're delivering prescriptions for the local pharmacies, which means that people are getting their prescriptions almost as soon as they're coming in, because there's a lot of support, a lot of people volunteering. There's 2 local residents who I provide shopping with on a weekly basis, who are both, they both got the shielding letter from the NHS, so they're at high risk. Besides that, I've seen a lot of dog walking, people taking each other's bins out, also just a phone line. You can call someone and they'll be on the other end to help pick up and talk to you, to give you advice or to just be a friendly ear. So it really is, the thing is, it's not centrally administered. Every community decides what is most helpful for them. So I live in a city, but in the countryside, there's very different issues that might come about from, for example, living in a food desert where you don't have a local shop nearby. So someone with a car will go and pick up a large amount of food and deliver it around to people within a village. So it really does depend what is helpful for you. And within reason, we try to just match any request that comes in, because we realize this is a difficult, exceptional time. And the best way we can get through this side of things is with communities coming together and supporting each other. And that's kind of been proven so far.
Brilliant. And just to reiterate, it's a fantastic resource. Can you just go through again how somebody can actually find the support that they need at a local level using that search box?
Of course, yeah. So this search box here, which I think you can see on the right, you literally just put in your local area. It could be either the name of the area, it could be the name of a town, of a street, it could be your postcode. Postcode is generally the most accurate. So you type that in, you click search, then it will bring up a map of the UK, of your local area. And so you can find within that local area, so where I am, there's 4 or 5 different groups, and you can decide which one matches your needs most closely. Some will be for example, people who are homeless in the local area. So if you have housing issues, you can go and contact that group and they can help you deal with that. Others will just be a catch-all group for the local borough or for the local county. Some will be a group just for a street or even for half a street. And generally what happens then is you'll be given a link to a Facebook page or to a website or sometimes to a WhatsApp group as well. So if you have WhatsApp, you can use that to join the local group. And from there, you can make a request or you can offer to fulfill a request if you have the ability to help someone. So it's really straightforward there. If anything doesn't seem clear, there's an email address on our website and we have someone answering the emails the whole time. We give top priority to people who are emailing asking for help. So we try to answer those within an hour. And so if you just can't find the local group or you're having trouble navigating the website, we can walk you through that. We can give you a phone call and we can put you directly in contact with someone in your local area.
That's fantastic. Thanks ever so much for going through that. I think it's a brilliant resource. And as I say, it's already helped somebody who's joined the webinar this morning to get that localized support. So thanks ever so much for talking us through that. So I'm going to move on now. This is just also a slide from me just to flag up, as you've mentioned, Reece, quite a lot of the local face groups have already registered with yourself, but Facebook is an alternative way of finding a local support group. I've also joined mine to volunteer, but also it's a great source of information. So you can similarly, if you are on Facebook, a really easy way to find the local groups is to just go into the search box at the top and type the name of where you live. So I've just put in Hassocks because that's where I live. Instantly brought up, if you see this, you can see the second one down on the screenshot that I've taken is the Hassocks and Kemah COVID-19 group, which is quite active. It's a great resource for me in terms of finding out where just local things, farm shops and things that are still open, and offering resources there. So yeah, if you have a Facebook account, it's a great way to find a local or community support group. As I say, just type in at the search box, enter the name of the place you live, and you should get a list of groups. And again, they're quite descriptive in terms of the type of support that they are offering. And once you've been accepted, you can just pop a message in there. And my local one I found to be very responsive. So that's an alternative way of finding local support for yourself or for somebody else who needs it as well. So yeah, a different way of doing it is you can click the groups tab at the top of the page on Facebook, and that should reveal all the local groups related to your search. Once you've found a local group, you usually need to click the join button and just wait for that to be, for your request to join the group to be approved, and then it will just pop up in the list of groups that on the left hand side of your news feed, and then from there you'll just be able to follow the local messages that go in there. So that's two resources in terms of finding local support using those kind of like overarching sites there. So hopefully that's helpful. So I'm going to pass over to Alison now from
sorry, before we finish, could I just speak to the issue of privacy and security, which I know is like a concern for people. It's also a massive concern for us, and there are lots of ways we've tried to ensure that like privacy and security are prioritized. So like the resources we put out to local groups explain the best way to secure that. One of the things is any data that you give us, so that would be an email address, a phone number, an address, anything like that, the moment that your request has been fulfilled and you don't need any more support, that information is deleted. So it won't be kept on a database for you for any longer than it has to. Secondly, we ensure that like everyone who is like getting involved, every neighbor who like goes and helps someone, they're very clear that they don't go inside someone's house. That's both to ensure like the minimal chance of spreading any kind of disease, particularly COVID, but also to ensure that there's no like risk of, you know, anything uncomfortable. So if someone's trying to come into your house, they're not following the procedure and, you know, you shouldn't trust them. So feel confident about that. Finally, with money, we're making it very clear to groups that they don't take payment until they've already made a purchase for someone. And secondly, that payment should be made as much as possible using a computer, so like via an online banking system. If that's not possible, they can take cash or even just agree credit. Also, some groups have set up benefit funds, so if people aren't able to access their money currently, which I think is a real issue, particularly with a lot of the post offices closing down, a lot of groups are able to offer, you know, food for free, basically.
Okay.
So yeah, like any security issue, like please ask a question in the chat and I can try and answer it as well.
That's brilliant. Thanks. Important point there. So, Alison, are you there? Would you want to just pop yourself off mute?
I am here. Can you hear me, Sarah?
Yes, I can. Great. Thank you. So I'm delighted to be joined by Alison Ingram from Age UK. So this is a screenshot from their website, which just shows that as with many of the sites, coronavirus, COVID-19 support is front and centre there. So we'll be rounding up all the links at the end, but you shouldn't find any problem at all finding the specific advice relating to COVID-19. So Alison, tell me about your role at Age UK.
So, well, first of all, thanks for having me today, Sarah. It's great to be part of this and so encouraging to see so much work being done by lots of different organisations on this. So I'm the head of wellbeing at Age UK. I work for the national organisation, so we are one charity, but a lot of my work is focused on supporting our local Age UK partners. So we've got 130 local Age UKs across England, and we also have sister charities in the other nations, so in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So I do a lot of work focused on how we support them.
Brilliant, that's great. And this is quite a big question, but what are you guys doing to respond to the pandemic? Perhaps you could talk us through some of the main initiatives and how you're helping people at this difficult time.
Yeah, so I'll give you a bit of a summary because there's quite a lot going on. So as you can imagine, you know, as a charity focusing our support on older people, this is a really busy time for us, and we're trying to make sure we're doing everything we can to support older people, both those in the shielded group and those who aren't. I think there's a lot of confusion about what the letters mean and who got a letter and who didn't and how that's working with the supermarkets. So one of the main roles that we've been playing is providing really clear, up-to-date information for older people. So on the website, you've helpfully shared what we've got on there, Sarah. We've seen the number of unique users on the website go up by about 50% in recent weeks. There's obviously a huge demand for that information. And we've also developed a coronavirus booklet, which is available in hard copy and online. We're really conscious that for a lot of the older people that we work with, many of them aren't online, or if they are online, aren't super confident with it. So it's really important that we've got the hard copy and telephone information in addition to the online. One of the things we've observed is a real proliferation of scams around this. So there are a lot of people trying to make money and take advantage of older people at this time. So we want to make sure that whenever we're sharing information, it's really clear that it's come from us. And, you know, as Reese mentioned, just making sure that no one's kind of overstepping boundaries, the information is being shared appropriately. So that's a big area, just trying to cut through some of the myths and make sure people have got the right information. So in addition to the online information and the hard copy stuff, we have our helplines. Age UK Advice provides information and advice 65 days a year. That's a free phone number that anyone can call. We also have the Silver Line, which is a loneliness-based service. People can ring up for a chat, and obviously a lot of older people are more isolated, you know, than even they were before. So that service has really seen a spike in calls. We also have our call in time service, which is a befriending opportunity where older people get matched with a volunteer who calls them once a week for half an hour, and it's the same person they speak to every week. So all of those services have seen a huge increase. I think at one point calls were up 88%. So we were kind of just trying to do everything we can to manage demand, but I'm sure you can envisage that that's a challenge. Locally then, there's lots of stuff being done in a really amazing way by the local Age UK network. So they're looking at access to food, something that's coming up again and again. So older people, perhaps unable to do online shopping, unable to go either because they have existing conditions that mean they can't get out, or they've been advised not to leave their home. And so that's a big challenge for lots of people. Local educators are trying to find ways around that. That can be in relation to purchasing food. So it could be, actually just helping them do the online order. It could also be deliveries. So we're trying to coordinate all of that locally, along with the medicine deliveries as well. So that's another aspect of that. Also, just trying to keep people moving. So we know that older people, well, any of us actually, if we're still for a long period of time, we lose muscle mass very quickly. And a lot of people are very sedentary at this time, and there's a huge concern that there will be a massive increase in falls. So older people who are at home, who perhaps are used to being able to do normal everyday activities, because they're sitting down much more, will become weaker, like all of us. And therefore, we need to try and keep people moving. So there's a lot of work being done around online physical activity kind of sessions, but also we're trying to get hard copy information out to older people as well, to try and encourage them to move at home by themselves, even if they can't get online. So there are lots of different issues that we're trying to support older people with, and the demand is ever growing at the moment, as you can imagine.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there, and it sounds like it's a mixture of providing that advice in, as you say, in a hard copy form, providing information online for people, and a mixture of that sort of practical support that you're giving, but also some of the emotional and mental support that we've heard so much about, in terms of just having somebody to have a chat with you for half an hour every week, if you're on your own and you're feeling a bit lonely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the loneliness angle is huge, and the fact that people's regular structures and systems have been completely disrupted means that they're very, very isolated at the moment. But there's some really creative stuff happening, and I think we should all be encouraged by that. We've heard of older people who have been running their regular book club by telephone instead of meeting. So people are finding ways around it, and we see a lot of interaction through windows, which is sort of, it's kind of heartbreaking that people can't touch each other and hug and, hold hands. But that is actually quite a key kind of point of contact for lots of older people. Also letter writing. So there's been a lot of people, sending cards, writing stories, drawing pictures, sending them to older people in their area. So trying to make the most of what we can do, I think is really important, because we don't want to just focus on what the issues are and what the barriers are.
Yeah. And I think that's great, and technology can help with a lot of this stuff. And in terms of the letter writing, actually, so I just was looking at Touch Note, which is like an app that you can have on your phone, and without even going to the post office, you can create like a postcard with a picture on it, and you can just send it. I mean, you do have to sign up for some credits and things, but you can just load it up with, I've put £10 on there, I think, and then I can just send some postcards to my family just to say, hi, how are you doing? And it's just lovely to get that bit of communication, isn't it, from the outside world, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen, I think they're called kudo boards, where people can post lots of different messages, like, if it's a get well soon situation, trying to encourage someone in that way is a really kind of helpful point of contact for them.
Fantastic. And I think we are going to round up all of the contacts and all the information that we're sharing, so that all the links will be from everybody you hear from today will appear at the end of the presentation. So yeah, have we covered everything, Alison, or is there anything else you wanted to share in terms of like big successes or anything, any other ways that tech are helping you during this time?
So in terms of tech, I mean, we've completely kind of transformed how we're operating as a business, as many of you will have done, in terms of working from home and keeping in touch, which has been great, and much needed, actually. I think in terms of how we're using tech to contact older people, one area that we're really keen to focus on is the older people who are not online, or perhaps use WhatsApp but don't even realize that's online, and trying to help them either use their device more effectively or get devices to people who have not been online with very, very detailed instructions, trying to explain to them what they need to do alongside a helpline. So we're looking to post tablets out to older people who've potentially never been online, with very, very detailed instructions. And we're going to see how that goes. I think it will be difficult. I mean, I can imagine for myself, if I'd never been online and I was presented with the kind of black triangle and a whole pages and pages of instructions, that would be quite intimidating. But I think it's worth trying it, because there are some people who have no other contact and no other way of, you know, trying to engage with the outside world. So we're going to see how that goes. Be really interested to know if anyone has any experience in that kind of area. But that's one thing that we are really trying to look at. Also, just connecting people online. You know, if anyone does have an email address and they have been in touch with us, trying to make sure that they're linked up with other things that are happening, and trying to expand people's view of what they can do online is really important, because we know there are a lot of people who perhaps have a specific kind of reason that they go, you know, they go to check their emails and they look at the BBC website and that's all they ever do. So trying to help them explore what else they can do in a safe way, where they feel supported, is one of the key areas that we're looking at. You know, how can we use digital champions by telephone rather than the usual face-to-face model? We've also seen some families where they've done some work through the windows of the home, so where, you know, one person's had a device on one side and they're on the other. So there's lots of creative stuff going on, and technology is definitely, you know, a key part of all of that.
Brilliant, thank you. And at the end of the presentation, we'll also be sharing the specific AbilityNet information. Our helpline is open business as usual, and we are very able and willing to also provide that support for people who are either getting to grips with technology for the first time, or needing any specific help in terms of making more of that, or any specific accessibility challenges that they've got. So we'll round all that information up at the end as well. So that's fantastic, thank you. So Amanda, I know you've been waiting patiently in the wings. If you can just unmute yourself, and we'll talk about similarly what the British Red Cross is doing in this area. So again, I've added a screenshot here, which is on the homepage of the British Red Cross. And again, you know, support around this front and centre. Mentioned your kindness manifesto, which I know we're going to come on and talk about in a bit more detail. So same questions to you really, if you'd like to tell us your role at the British Red Cross, and then tell us a little bit about how you're responding to the pandemic for anyone who needs help at this time.
Okay, thank you for inviting me, Sarah, and I hope I can give you a little bit more information about what the Red Cross is doing. Very similar to other panellists, which is really positive. I think that that all communities are coming together and all charities are coming together, so I think that's very, very positive. My role with the British Red Cross is the Business and Partnership Development Manager within the North, a role I've been in almost 2 years now. So the British Red Cross has their kindness manifesto, which we launched leading on from our Trapped in a Bubble work that we did for social isolation. And I think what's very, very clear is that the current pandemic is creating lots of social isolation and lots of loneliness. And we found that, as well as the people that we support, also for our staff who are shielded and our volunteers, they too are lonely and isolated, which, you know, part of the slide that you've put on is the Hope one, is a colouring book, an activity book, which we give out to people. And it is quite useful, and it is a hard copy because, as colleagues have said, not every person has got IT availability. And we've certainly found with our refugee support that we do, it's vital for people to go out into libraries and cafes when they have got unsecure status. And those cafes and libraries are closed now, so that also increases their isolation too. So the Red Cross is linking in with our NHS partners to support home from hospital. We are linked in with the Daily Mirror, and there's some nice stories and some nice positive stories, because I think throughout this pandemic, positivity will get us through, kindness will get us through. And I think, you know, it is a challenging time, but as communities, we are doing everything we possibly can to support it. So some of the biggest challenges for the Red Cross is responding to the requests. You know, we are having a lot of requests from people who pick up the phone and ask for help. So we've been fortunate to signpost people to COVID-19, to other partners, and to link into some of the community hubs and the local authority hubs too. We don't have all the information. I don't think anyone's an expert in this, but the connectivity is vital. Mm-hmm. And if we can be a small part of that, then it helps people to get through. Technology for me is really important. It connects, it links, and it is vital. And I think for us, the biggest success for the Red Cross is that our workforce, our volunteers and our staff have responded quickly and with a desire to make things different and to improve things for everyone. Our connections with food banks, our connections with local authorities, it's been really, really humbling and positive, and something that, you know, you can be incredibly proud of, to reflect and look back and say, as a community, we all did incredibly well during very difficult times.
Yeah, and I think you're right, that connectivity at the moment, you know, that's almost why the internet was invented in the first place, wasn't it? Yeah. Just to, you know, and that shrinking of society and global society, and I think, you know, a lot of today's webinar has come about through making those connections digitally.
Absolutely.
And lots of signposting, which is what we're hoping that today will be all about. So
lots of signposting.
Your homepage there, and I know there's lots of links from there as well, as you say, to COVID and to others who are providing that help. So I'll just bring up some of those good news stories for you, which you kindly sent across. Perhaps you'd like to just talk us through how you're pulling these together and sharing them with
the bottom one, My Last Love Letter, and we do have permission from the person for this. One of our assisted discharge services, this gentleman unfortunately has a terminal diagnosis, and it was important for him to write a letter to his partner. So with social distancing, that was something that we managed to do, and that was important to him. And his partner read that, and even though it wasn't going to collect some shopping or a prescription, for this gentleman it was vital to get that last love letter written down, and that was something that we supported him to do. And we've been very fortunate, you know, quite a few of the large organisations have contacted us, and you know, the flowers are presented and donated, and they make a difference to quite a lot of our NHS colleagues and also to people we support in the community. So I think the kindness manifesto isn't just the Red Cross, it's the whole community at the minute, and we're very fortunate to be able to support that.
That's brilliant, thank you. So again, it's that mixture of the practical support that's all coming together, and some of the sort of acts of kindness and the mental health side of things. So I'm going to ask you to pop yourself back on mute if you don't mind, and just move on from there. So we have a number of polls, so we just wanted to find out a bit more information from the people who've joined us about how you're getting on during this time. So I will just launch our first poll, which is to find out whether people have received local support during this time. So hopefully most people can see the poll on screen. So we're just asking whether you've received support from a local support group during COVID-19. So I'm just going to allow a few seconds for people to respond there. Just a simple yes or no, whether you've managed to access local support during this time. Just give it a few more seconds for people to answer the poll, and then I'll share the results in a second. still changing just a little bit. I'll just give it a couple more seconds and let people make sure everyone has a chance to have their say. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share it. Hang on. Oh, I've lost my cursor. Here we go. Share the results. So actually, what we can see here is that 78% people are saying that they haven't received that local support, and 22% have, which I guess I'm just curious about. I don't know whether that's because I'm hoping that the people who need the support are finding that local support out there, and if not, genuinely hope that this webinar signposts people to where they can find that information and that support if they need it. So I will just end the poll and move on to RNIB. So are you there? Just like to pop yourself off mute. Gary, we've got, I think, from RNIB joining us.
Hi, Sarah. Hi there.
Hi, how are you doing? Perhaps you'd just like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your role at RNIB, and then similarly what you're doing in terms of responding to the pandemic.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Sarah, and everyone for inviting me to be part as well. I'm actually really amazed listening as well. So I've been listening intently to some of the other presentations there, and fantastic stuff that I've been hearing. So my role at RNIB is the lead within specialist services, specifically around assistive technology and digital inclusion. So myself and my team focus mainly on 4 areas, which is around supporting people with low vision or sight loss to make the most of technology and devices and online services through a range of channels, really, from information and advice and telephone support through to deployment of volunteers locally, and through to we run a grants program as well to allow people to access the technology and devices that they would need to maintain independence through getting hold of or get their hands on the equipment that they would need. So what we're doing, so in general, RNIB, we've got lots and lots going on. Our services are still very much running. Our helpline is open. We're seeing huge amounts of calls into our helpline. It remains open, usual hours, 8 till 8 on weekdays, and we've extended our Saturday operation as well. So our staff have been fantastic. We've moved to home working, like as mentioned earlier. Lots and lots of people would have been doing that at the moment. So a massive effort from our IT team as well to move all of our staff to home working. So we had the first week or so of adjusting, but now we are fully up and running, and that team is operating in the usual manner, offering advice, support, guidance, information about sight loss, or a whole range of services and information. And we're also doing a lot more online as well. So our Facebook groups, we have a Facebook group for each regional area. So that's the 9 UK regions in England, plus Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And our advisors are being much more active on those groups and stimulating discussion and connecting people to the right information, useful tips, hints, things that people can get up to whilst being at home, and sharing and developing conversations across the community. We are sight loss, the eye clinic team, obviously hospital eye care services have been affected, so the eye clinic liaison officers, which we have at RNIB, are predominantly based in eye clinics, and there to offer support, information and emotional support to people in the eye clinics. They are home based and have been offering and delivering that support remotely. and also doing a number of checks and support calls into some of our current client base as well, which has been fantastic to be able to move those guys onto a remote platform so that they can continue to do that work. Obviously our products and shop still running, and we're still seeing a lot of product purchases and things for people to specifically around reading devices, ways in which people can still access written material, either audio or digitally. So we've seen a lot more of increase around that. People can still purchase those devices through the shop, but we've also changed the way in which we can. We're allowing people to access those books and those reading materials. So the newsagent program we offer, which is large print and braille versions of newspapers and magazines. So that's national newspapers as well as more specific interest newspapers have been moved online and digitally, being able to access that digitally, and obviously the support around that, about accessing that, has been underpinned by my team of technology advisors who have been supporting people with remotely being able to get set up and use those types of devices.
That's great. And there's a lot of devices, as you say, out there that can actually help people with sight loss to access and use the technology and to maintain that connection. And again, as I'm sure you're aware, it's an area that AbilityNet is also very active in terms of providing information and support online or through the helpline support for people who just want to know how to make better use of those tools. So we're very willing to help with that as well.
Yeah, and you know, we've worked together for a long time, Sarah. So the guys in my team know the AbilityNet guys really well, and there's some of the queries are transferred and supported across both elements of the services.
Sorry to interrupt, Gary.
Sorry.
I wondered if we could come on and talk about the specific example that we mentioned in terms of technology, just a way that technology is supporting. If you're able to just talk us through Be My Eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would also just wanted to mention as well, I think whilst people have been isolated, we've seen a lot more calls relating to the way in which people read and can access the information. I think from our perspective, we've been able to change the way we're able to manage them and spend more time with people and have more quality conversations. Yeah. So rather than a call back, to spend more time, because we've had more advisors available, we'll be able to answer those queries first time. So that's a real positive for us from all of this. Yeah, so just going on to Be My Eyes. So we've just last week launched a relationship with the Be My Eyes app, which is a free mobile app for anyone with sight loss or low vision, and that will connect to someone with some useful vision at the other end of a smartphone. Now, there are over 3 million volunteers worldwide registered on the app, and it's a global platform. But in the UK, we've just signed up alongside some of the larger companies like Microsoft, Google's, Lloyds Bank, Halifax, Clearblue, to be able to offer specialist help for people with low vision. So effectively, you can connect to a volunteer if it's a regular query, something like, could you just explain to me, is this a tin of beans or is this a spaghetti hoops? Or what colour is my tie? Does it match this shirt? And through the app, the person they've connected to would be able to offer that advice. However, with specialist help, we're able to support people with specific inquiries relating to RNIB products or services. So for example, they may have a problem with one of our setting up a talking watch, or being able to navigate some of the buttons on one of the new products. So we're able to connect via smartphone now, and a direct video link to be able to help that person remotely.
Mm-hmm.
A really new platform, and we're really excited to see how it goes. We're the first sight loss charity to sign up in the UK, so we're very, very excited, and we'll be sharing out some messages on our website very soon.
That's great.
So one other thing we've been doing on our website, and I'd encourage people to go and check out, is we've been doing reviews on specific apps and other platforms as well. Obviously Be My Eyes is one, but we've done some reviews around things like Nextdoor app, as well as Be On Hand, Close at Hand, very similar names, but all platforms and applications which people can connect to local communities. We've been testing them for accessibility and how someone might be able to use that from a low vision perspective. So the reviews are up on our website, and we'll be putting out a few more week by week now.
That's great, and we can definitely share some links to that information. Again, I know my colleague is keeping a list of useful things that come up during the call, and we'll share that afterwards. So that's fantastic. Thanks ever so much, Gary.
No problem. Thank you.
So just move on to find out a little bit about what the Stroke Association is doing during this time. Nick, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for joining us. So as before, I've just got a screenshot here of Stroke Association. Same messages there about being closer than ever. It's a crisis for everybody, but it's about communities and charities and organisations coming together. So Nick, just tell us quickly about your role at Stroke Association and what you're doing in terms of helping your clients respond during this difficult time.
Yeah, absolutely. So my job title is Volunteer Training and Development Officer. So I particularly focus on working with our volunteers at a national level who run 220 volunteer-led groups across the UK. So most of them are led by stroke survivors, and they're about connecting stroke survivors in a local community way. But across the organisation, we're doing loads of different things like everyone in response to the pandemic. So like you saw on our website, one of the key things is access to information. So almost right away, we had a lot of people asking us, I've had a stroke, what does that mean in terms of my risk? So creating that information with clinicians and then developing it into an accessible format so that everyone who's had a stroke can understand that information. We have completely transformed how we deliver all our regular services. So what used to be going out to visit people in their homes obviously can't happen now. So doing that by phone and by Skype to make sure we're still there to provide support to people who've had a stroke. We're also exploring with the NHS how we can support in areas where we don't have services. We have a helpline, which, like all helplines during this time and other people have mentioned, has had a lot more calls recently with people reaching out that way to get information. So we've increased the capacity there to make sure we are able to respond to people quickly, and we are able to have the time for people and have the time to chat to people. We've also got My Stroke Guide, which is an online platform for accessing information and online community about stroke. And again, we're putting more capacity in there, so more of our staff are going to be available on there to be answering people's questions. And we're just about to launch a new volunteering support service, so a sort of phone befriending service where people can sign up and be matched to a volunteer who'll phone in and chat to them. And it's like, other charities are doing this, but this one is for people who've had a stroke in particular. So you'll get a volunteer who may have had a stroke themselves, but definitely will understand a lot about stroke. And we're working really hard with volunteer-led groups and the groups affiliated with us to try and think about how can they connect online, how can they sort of keep some connection going within their local community in this time where they can't meet up with each other face to face. So yeah, we've got an awful lot going on just now.
Yeah, this has been quite a big adaptation for you guys, I think, hasn't it? Because you do provide that kind of like local face-to-face community support. You've had to quite quickly adapt to that online signposting. As you say, My Stroke Guide existed already, and that is a great resource for people because you've got the forums there, you can chat to other people, and that continues, doesn't it? And as you say, your own people will be in there responding to questions that people have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, My Stroke Guide is designed with stroke survivors, so it's designed to be really accessible and have lots of different flexible options to sort of make it as usable as possible to people who might not be the most confident with technology. And you know, our volunteer-led groups have been really amazing. You know, we've had a lot of examples of them using technology to meet in different ways and been, you know, really thinking about what works for us. So, you know, we've had choirs that have been meeting on Zoom. So, you know, they've been continuing to sing along with each other on Zoom, which has been amazing to see. Like, that's brought some real joy to people, which is so important for mental health right now. You know, we've had some of our volunteers have, you know, took to emailing all their members and sending out sort of email newsletters of different mental health resources. So that's a bit of connection with someone they already know, but also, you know, keeping it quite simple, keeping it within the email, but using technology to connect with people. You know, we've had sort of coffee mornings taking place on Facebook Messenger. We've had, you know, WhatsApp groups being set up by our volunteers so members can keep chatting with each other. So there's loads of lovely examples starting to happen already where people are using technology to keep connected. And it's it's so heartwarming.
I'm going to look into the choir afterwards. It sounds amazing. Yeah, looking forward to it. Okay, that's great. Thank you. So you've very kindly listed some links here. I'm not going to read them all out now, but there is a link here to My Stroke Guide. And as you say, the clubs are trying to keep themselves going using technology. Just signposted to the joint webinar that we did with you guys quite recently as well, because we shared a bit more detailed information during that about My Stroke Guide. If people want to find out a bit more information and a bit more about you guys, they can go and watch that again. So the slides, just to reiterate, will be made available after the call. Everyone will receive an email and you'll just be able to go through and pick out any relevant contacts at your leisure. So I will just come on to our second poll now. I'm just going to launch this, although I might need some help from somebody. Hang on. No, I've got it. Hang on. So I'm just going to launch the second poll here, which hopefully is popping up on screen. So this is just to find out if people do have a specific disability or impairment, if people would just like to, if you're comfortable to answer this question, no obligation obviously. It'd just be interesting to see what type of specific support people are looking for at this time. So just leave that up for a few more seconds and allow people to put in the answers there. So we've got a range from I don't have an impairment, hearing or speech impairment, neurodiverse issues, memory issues, mental health. We've talked about quite a lot already today, so it would be good to just hear from people about about the type of help that you need there. Let's just give it a couple more seconds. Looks like it's settling down. Okay, so I'm just going to end the poll and share the results with everybody. Here we go. So we can see here that 64% of people are saying that they don't have an impairment. We've got 17% of people who've got mobility issues, quite a lot coming up around mental health there. 5% in terms of vision and colour perception there as well. So interesting results. So I will just move on. So Mick, are you there?
I am here, yes.
Hi Mick. So do you just want to give us a really brief overview of your book Staying Put and why you wrote it? I know it rounds up lots of useful information which we haven't got time to go into today, but we will share the link to your website afterwards. So yeah, just give us a brief introduction to Staying Put.
First, can I say, if anybody wants a free copy, it's free today on Amazon. You can only make things free on Amazon for a little while, so grab one now. I wrote Staying Put last year before this happened, and it was based partly on the experience of helping my own parents through the care situation and into a care home. And I found out lots of things. Some of them were really positive and some of them were quite shocking. So I put them together and published this in December. Turned around and after Christmas to find that staying put was no longer a choice for those of us over 60. We were some of the first that were told to stay at home for 12 weeks. And we've all found ourselves in that situation. Being in the sort of 70 plus a couple of months group, I'm not supposed to go out and help people. So I've thought, what can I do? So I updated the book with what I hope was useful information, and decided to make it free. The actual COVID related part of it is free on the internet, but you can get the whole book anyway. So if you go to stayhomewise.info, you can find details of the appendix, so to speak, for the COVID thing.
That's great, thanks. And it touches on a lot of I just wanted to mention that it touches on a lot of the future webinars that we're planning. You've talked a little bit in there. There's some great tips in terms of staying safe online, and that's something that we'll be running a specific webinar on in a couple of weeks with an expert. And lots of the themes that you've picked up on we'll be covering in terms of entertainment and how people can keep themselves, I know AGK were talking about staying physically active, but also how people can stay mentally active during this time. But some of the information you've shared is very, very practical. So I just want to move on to the next slide and just flag this up with people. So I know you flagged this up.
I did, and I'm a bit disappointed with it. When I first put the link up, there was the distinct impression that anybody who had been advised to stay at home, i.e. those over 70 plus those with illness, could register. But I think you'll find that it now refers to the shielded group. So those of us who are sort of fit and healthy over 70 won't get on a grocery list, so to speak, as far as I can see. And I
don't know whether AGK could say any more about that, because I know this is something that you guys have been looking into, if you're still there.
Yeah, that's right. So what Nick says is completely correct. So the shielded group will be able to get a slot, but if you're over 70, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will be able to. So we've been doing some work with the supermarkets to try and influence them to understand a bit more broadly some of the issues that are going on, and they are listening, but it's a slow process. One area that they have been receptive of is trying to ensure that any volunteers or carers who are shopping for an older person or someone else who needs support can get into the supermarket during the priority slots, and also that they might be able to have more than the upper limit of the restricted items, because if they're shopping for more than one person, sometimes they need to buy more. So those conversations are ongoing and they seem open to those possibilities, but I think the practicalities of it can sometimes be difficult. You know, the supermarkets have so many branches, and trying to get all the staff aware of the issues is a challenge, but Mick's completely correct in what he says.
Yeah, okay. And I think if people are struggling, they can also get in touch with their local GP as well, and maybe get them to try and help a little bit with it. I've heard stories about that, about just getting a bit more support there. So this will be again shared. We know that it's not a perfect system, but hopefully that signposting for people who are in that group will help people.
But definitely, if you are in that group, get there and get registered.
Exactly, it's really good advice.
A lot of our people that have joined us today would, I'm sure, fall into that that category, so to speak. They have actually published the algorithm they use on the website now, so you can have a look at how we're being classified and so on.
That's
do you want me to talk about a couple of the other?
Well, I've just had a quick look at the time actually, and we're running out of time. So I'm just going to launch the final poll for people, just to find out whether people have been able to take advantage of this. So I just launched the poll now to see whether people have. It'd be interesting to know if people have actually registered using the government website already, either for yourself or for someone else. I know anecdotally, as you mentioned, Alison, quite a lot of people have been doing it on behalf of others who perhaps less IT literate, and getting them signed up just so that they can try and get some support and some online deliveries here. So I'll just give it a few more seconds and see whether people have registered or not for the service. Okay, so I'm just going to end the poll. So vast majority haven't, and it may be that that's because people are not falling within the shielded group. So we can see that 92% of people haven't actually registered as vulnerable. So I don't know if that's about awareness or to do with people thinking that they can't take available, but hopefully we've just raised a bit of awareness about that today. So I'm very conscious of time, but we've had lots of people join in terms of different charities today, and there's been quite a lot to get through. I'm not planning to read all of these out, but there are some other links here which we've been rounding up. One of my colleagues has been rounding this up. So there are some other contacts which might be useful here. We've been working really closely with some carers organisations as well. That whole thing about caring for somebody when you're physically distant is something that has been a real challenge. And there's a recording of the webinar that we ran last week, which people can find more information about that as well. We are running these webinars weekly where we can, which will be covering, as I say, things like staying safe online. Our website, our own helpline is available for people who need help with specific tech issues. So we'll share all these details afterwards, and you can find details of future webinars through the link here. Mark, I'll just throw over to you and see if there
Could I just give a plug to Sport England's website? We talked about activity, and they have a couple of links on there. Specifically, they've got an NHS link to an NHS video of exercise for older people.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Mick. Mark, are there,
I would recommend that.
Thanks, Alison. Mark, have you got some questions that have come through that we could just briefly flag up?
Mostly they've been answered. I think there's a question in here which I think is my question to the RNIB. I think this is the sort of thing you help people with. That somebody's having difficulty using their TV because the guide, the text on the guide isn't legible. And I think that's the sort of thing that somebody can call you about, isn't it? And ask for help, either to choose a service, to choose a TV before they buy it, or just to get some help afterwards. But also that's what I think Be My Eyes might be able to help you with. So Be My Eyes is was mentioned earlier, is a service you can get on your phone, which is free, an app that you can put on your phone. And then they could actually, you can point the camera at something and then they could explain what you're looking at. So there's a couple of different ways of doing it. But I just thought I'd check in with Gary about, I think there's a sort of answer that RNIB may be to help with on the helpline, I think. Is that right, Gary?
Are you there?
Gary's still there?
So?
Thought he was. His name was still on the list before I asked. So.
Yeah.
Well, if not, I think that was just one of those questions saying, where do I go for help? And I think that's the point about trying to round up that people like the RNIB's helpline will be familiar with those sorts of questions. And you could either call her on her behalf or get them to call him direct.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah.
I wonder if, sorry, and my name's Alex. I'm the Advice and Information Officer from AbilityNet, and I thought you might be interested in a an email that I've just taken, and I wonder if the lady from AIDS UK is still here, because a chap from the Wirral on Merseyside is 91, and he was having real difficulties trying to get on the priority list for shopping. So I've suggested that he goes and talks to his GP. The interesting thing is, when I put his details into Google, his address, and he came up as a resident in a sheltered housing scheme, and I just wondered whether AIDS UK had knew what support was available in sheltered housing schemes, or are they all doing their own thing in isolation, as it were, was?
Yeah, thanks for that, Alex. It's a really good question. So at the moment, sheltered housing schemes are all doing their own thing. So it just depends on what resources they have and how well in touch with their residents they are. So I'd hope that that gentleman might be able to get some help from the scheme that he's part of. But you did the right thing to get him to contact the GP, because if the GP can give him some support to, you know, help recognise that he needs additional help, that will hopefully enable the supermarkets to take some action. But it sounds like he's in a really difficult situation, which we hope people find some way to get out of. But you know, if anyone is in that kind of crisis, please do feel free to give them our phone number. They're really welcome to call. I'll put it in the Q&A just so you can see it.
That's great.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
And I think as people who provide signposting services, I guess we've always got to be really mindful. We can give people the details of where to contact, but we need to rein in the expectation of how long it might take to get an answer back. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
Great. So brings me to my final slide, which is quite short but important, which is just to thank everybody from the charities who have joined us today, all the different organisations. There's been some great advice, I think. And I think one of the things that the crisis has flagged up is just the number of people who are quite often isolated, actually, all the time. And, you know, it's great to see communities coming together. And I think there's a lot of fantastic advice. Technology, not just at this time, but all the time, can help to connect people, connect us as charities to each other, connect vulnerable people to the outside world. And I hope we've done a little bit of that today for everybody. So do please watch out for the recording. We'll be sharing as many links and as much signposting as Alex says afterwards. Yeah, just I feel like I missed that Sports England. That's a really good tip, just to say that for people staying physically active. So thanks, Mick and Alison, for flagging that up, and we'll share as many links and as much detail as we can from everybody once this finishes. So I'll just end there. Thanks ever so much, everybody, and all take care. Thanks all.
Thank you, Sarah, for all your hard work pulling it together as well. It's been great.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone.
Well done, Sarah. Well done, everyone. Thanks.
Well done. Bye.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out how to finish now. Here we go.
Just quit.
Okay.
That'll do it.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.